Welcome to the Greater Meaning Podcast, where Bible stories come alive at last. Dive into your word, let your faith be cast. Join us on this journey, learning from the past.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Greater Meaning Podcast. As always, I am your host, Andrew, alongside with my two co-hosts, Nathan.
Hello.
And Josh.
Hey guys, how you doing?
And together we take you through the stories of the Bible from beginning to end in chronological order. And today we officially move from the book of Genesis into the second book of the Bible, Exodus.
This is a big one.
The thing that Nathan told me not to say.
Andrew,
Every episode apparently is a big one. And I say that over and over again. And it's really exciting.
Did you shave your face?
I shaved it down a little bit.
I just now noticed.
Yeah, my daughter notices immediately. She told me
I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, most people don't like it. Apparently, I got one of those faces that's supposed to have a beard.
You're very untrustworthy right now.
I thought it was the other way. I thought it's like if you don't shave, you're untrustworthy.
I don't trust anybody without facial hair.
Really?
No, I'm serious.
Women included?
You know what? I agree with you.
Don't make me say it.
Nathan, I agree with you. Wherever I go, if I go, I mean, especially with like salesman type of people, if I walk into a store and a guy with a beard approaches, I'm more willing to listen to that person tell me whatever, because they might have been through some stuff in life.
Well, according to 1950s businessmen.
Yeah, back in the day, facial hair wasn't deemed.
It's the opposite.
It was the opposite. But
hippies had beards.
But honestly, in today's modern world, it's not like that at all.
Imagine Moses without a beard. It just, you wouldn't follow him. Why would anyone follow him if he didn't have a beard?
Good segue back into it. Because
I know Jesus had a beard.
Wait a minute. Hold on there. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
He did. He had a beard. There's no way he didn't. Everybody had a beard.
It was kind of the style back then. They wouldn't shave. That's kind of... There was like the one rule. What was it? They don't shave like their sideburns and their face. Wasn't that?
Yeah, but they had to be clean.
Having a beard doesn't mean you're dirty. That's the thing. Like
no, I know, but beard. You have to trim. You have to take care of yourself. You can't look like a wild man. John the Baptist was a wild, hairy man.
Yeah, but he was also pretty cool.
Yeah, he was a cool guy.
And it's called John the Baptizer, according to The Chosen.
Did you just start watching The Chosen, Nathan?
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
It's pretty cool. I like it. Honestly,
really
I don't
nice.
ruin it because I don't know what happens with Jesus. But
don't spoil it.
I think it's pretty cool so far. I really do like it.
I love the way that they portray Jesus and the disciples, and with all the people that are, with everything that's going on in that time, it makes it a little bit more relatable when you see it. And yes, not everything is coexistent with word for word from the Bible, but they did a pretty good job filling in the story to make it.
Yeah, it's inspired by the story of the Bible, but obviously
Mark.
It even says like get your Bible story, like get your study from the Bible.
Matthew. It's inspired from Matthew, not Mark.
I thought it was Luke. There's a lot. It goes off of Luke a lot more than any of them.
I mean, I like how, like, yeah, you said, like, Jesus is relatable. In that show, I mean, they do a good job of basically
showing the
exactly
humanity.
What you said. Like, they make them, because like in my head, I guess I always imagined this like holy, like super holy guy.
Everywhere he walks around, my father.
Yeah, but like in reality, he was.
Wait till the later episodes. Like he gets like hot in the temples. Like he's like angry.
Yeah, so he's like a human. Yeah. But you know who also is a hero?
Moses.
Moses is the most unrelatable to me because I mean he was like the son of a pharaoh.
All right, so the transition from
God parted the Red Sea through him.
They made a whole movie on this guy.
Oh, everybody's seen Prince.
To me, Moses is like the most unrelatable character.
Man, I'm thinking
there's like no way I could like nobody could be like Moses. That's the guy.
Well, nobody actually tried. It was kind of held on that pedestal. But the transition from Genesis to Exodus marks a significant shift in the narrative of the Bible.
Put it this way, Moses was so great that God, like, what, an angel buried him?
Yeah, they had to take his body.
Like, an angel fought with the devil for his body to bury him. Like,
That's later on. We need to have this discussion later on.
I know we will.
It's just a little, yeah.
Just giving you a tidbit.
With the beginning of the story of Exodus, the book of Exodus, we're going to be covering. It's going to cover the story of Moses and the Israelites now as a nation. I mean, the descendants of Jacob who settled in Egypt during the time of Joseph have now at this point multiplied into a large and formidable nation, just like God said to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob that I will make of you a great nation. Well, it happened, and it happened in Egypt over the course of 400 years. However, their growing numbers and strength becomes a source of fear for this new Pharaoh who actually comes up and gains power and has no connection to Joseph or his legacy. This Pharaoh sees the Israelites as a threat to the power and security of Egypt. And so that's kind of where we begin the story of Moses himself in the book of Exodus in chapter 1. One of the most pivotal figures in the Bible. The book of Exodus opens with the Israelites' plight under the Egyptian oppression, setting the stage for their eventual deliverance and fulfillment of God's promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, before we get into the start of the story of Moses in part 1, I do want to give a little bit, because as we move through the books of the Bible, book of Exodus is the second book in what we already mentioned in the beginning of the Genesis, is the second book in the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books of Moses. And a lot of people believe it was written by Moses. Again, he's most likely the author of this book, as well as the 3 other books that will precede this. It does mention in the Bible multiple places where there's like scriptural evidence for Moses being the author of this books. I mean, even in Exodus 24:4, it says that Moses wrote the law and instruction. There's also sources in Deuteronomy, Joshua chapter 1, verse 7, 1 Kings, and then also Acts chapter 7 famously quotes Moses as being learned was learned in all wisdom of Egypt and was a mighty man in words and deeds, kind of alluding to the fact that he was, an orator, an author, and at one point God had given him the laws and he actually inscribed the Pentateuch. So Moses, yeah. A lot of people consider him, up until we have for the Israelite people, Moses is the most important, beyond pivotal. Like they straight up held him in the highest regard. And the title Let Exodus,
my people go.
Oh yeah.
Let my people go.
The original word for the book, or the title for the book of Exodus, was "These are the names," taken from the first couple words in the first verse, and these are the names of the children who followed, or that the sons of Jacob that went to Egypt and settled there.
What did you just say? You said the first words in the Exodus are "these are the names,"
and these are the names, and that's what in the original Hebrew, before you had the name or the title Exodus, that's actually what they would refer to that scroll or that section. The Pentateuch was meant to be one whole book with certain like 5 different volumes. It wasn't supposed to be separated like it is. So that's why you see even like verse 1, it starts in that way. And how they distinguished that first section in the original Hebrew was Wele Shemot, or these are the names. So the title Exodus actually comes from the Latin abbreviation of the Greek translated Septuagint, Exodus, so going out from Egypt. It's pretty easy, but I just thought that was a fun fact. I wanted to give that.
There was like, if there was something that had 0 fun, that was the least fun fact I've ever heard. I don't
fun
care,
fact
dude. That's
minus
good.
Fun equals
they
fact.
exited out of Egypt. But the thing is, the problem...
Just so you know, by the way, it's originally called "And These Are the Names."
Yeah, I'm that guy.
Like, dude. Okay.
Actually...
Yeah, that's cool. Can we get to the crazy stuff that happens in Exodus?
Can we start with Exodus? Can we just start?
Many insane things happen. The only reason I mention it is because not all of the book of Exodus covers the physical Exodus. The book is like,
What is Exodus? Like,
Exodus is going out or to exit.
okay, because that's what we assume, but maybe it means
Listen,
something else. Maybe
if you
it
break
means,
down
like,
Exodus, it's exit us.
well,
Us exiting.
Exited.
Exit us.
Another brief thing is obviously the dating of the book and when it was written is very much so. I'm not going to get into it. I wrote a lot of notes about this, but
Yeah, we went into like, we're not archaeologists here,
Yeah,
man.
we're also not a
We're
Bible
telling
study,
stories
like-
of the Bible.
before we get into it, I mean, there's some scholars believe the events took place around 1446 BC, Moses being born in about 1526 BC. Other scholars believe that it was during the reigns of Ramses II, which would have taken place around 1279 through about 1213 BC. And then, but most scholars agree that the book itself was collected and put together as a separate book in like the 9th and 6th century. But, yeah, I mean, that's it. We could get into, we could start with the actual
Start the story, please.
The story itself is, as mentioned, insane. And there's so much that we're going to cover. That this is where the Bible starts to get crazily supernatural.
Deep.
Like God works in such miraculous ways in the lives of the Egyptians and in the life of Moses that up until now we've seen supernatural. Obviously, we've seen creation, we've seen a flood, we've seen God work and perform miracles.
Wells.
The wells of
Wells.
Isaac. Listen, I'm a big fan of the
Pretty
wells.
supernatural.
Right?
The trees of Mamre.
But there's no
Stones.
there's no getting around some of the most famous stories of the Bible take place in Exodus, the splitting of the Red Sea. You know, you have the fire coming down from heaven and leading them into the desert. You have the
Can
10
we stop?
plagues.
Spoiler alert.
Can
We're
we
just like
stop?
gonna
Oh,
spoil the whole
spoiler
thing.
Giving a-
Guys,
like-
let me just tell you.
No. Here's what's Andrew do. What he's doing is he's keeps giving like this preface of what Exodus is about. Let's just get into it.
All right, let's
All right,
get
but
into it.
Before we do,
I'm
can
happy
we
that it
explain
started in
how did we get
1200
the
BC.
name Exodus?
Cool.
We got Exodus from
No, I don't
the
care.
Greek
Dude.
Latin
Please
translated.
stop. Nobody wants to know this. Can we just get into it?
All right, Nathan, if you want to take us away, hold on.
What? We're reading?
I got so many interesting things about this story.
Are we not going to?
And none of it is about the timeline.
Nathan, that's your whole thing.
All right.
You
Which
read.
Which part do I read?
Well, obviously,
The
we're going to start with
beginning.
Exodus chapter 1, and we're going to read. Well,
I'm not reading the names of the
no,
people.
no. I just want you to read, actually starting from verse 6, and then
All
read
right.
from verse 6 to 11.
Let's just do 6 through chapter 30, verse 6. All right. And Joseph died, all of his brothers, and all that generation. But the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, Look, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply, and it happen in the event of war that they also join our enemies and fight against us,
Yeah.
and so go up out of the land. Therefore, they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Ramses.
So, first thing, right off the bat, God fulfills his promise. And in the span of this 400 years, after the old Pharaoh invites Joseph's father and brothers and their entire if we didn't read the first couple of verses, but it was about 70 people and their entire troop and family and tribes. It was
a lot of people.
If there's one thing about the Israelites, apparently they're really good at reproducing. Like,
Very
they're
good.
extremely like
Shrewdly good.
shrewd. I mean, that's not the
They
right.
are fruitful and multiply.
That's not the right word though.
No.
Shrewdly
They could
good.
work.
All right.
We created the words, Andrew. We don't have to follow their rules.
You're
We
absolutely
made
right.
them.
What rules?
Yeah.
A new Pharaoh rose up in Egypt, or a new king in Egypt who did not know Joseph. I thought a lot about this and I actually did a lot of reading. A lot of people think about it like, oh, the generations came and they started like stop trusting him and whatnot. It was more, there are some studies that it is more likely what happened was there was actually a new dynasty Like, think about in China, like whenever one would overthrow an old dynasty and then it would begin their own, there was probably somebody that rose to power that was unrelated to that entire lineage or line, which we know in Egypt happened. There was multiple dynasties and it has a really, really long history, that they came to power and they were unrelated with all the previous, traditions and connections and all the things that the old pharaoh used to do. And a new one rose up and just kind of took over from there. And so when he sees this vastly multiplying group of people that are just given free reign to just be about, but not conforming completely to the Egyptians, that's one thing to note too, is that they were with them for hundreds of years, but they didn't really meld or like join in with the rest of the Egyptians and completely become like them. A lot of times, like whenever people move into a country, I think after 400 years, wouldn't they just become one? Like, wouldn't they intermarry so much?
Thanks, Josh.
Good input, guys.
Well, I was going to do a Braveheart impression. Like, the problem with Scotland is it's full of Scots. Remember that part?
I do, but
that has nothing to do with this. Kind of does, but I'm sorry.
No, but I just thought that was interesting. They kept to their traditions. They kept to their worship of the one God. They didn't, forget where they came from or who they were. And they lasted that way. And a new pharaoh comes up and sees them. And it's kind of like, they could totally hurt us if they choose. They're given way too much freedom. So it says in the rest. Yeah.
Well, I'll go. I guess I'll start speaking for a little bit.
I'm just trying to give you openings.
Oh, no, you're fine. We see a new pharaoh comes in. Whether this is a new dynasty or not, I'm not exactly sure. It doesn't necessarily.
That was just something I read and I studied. Some people, a lot. That's just kind of what was.
It's
understood.
An interesting concept on what, like you're saying, why they didn't know who they were.
Oh, he probably knew who they were, but didn't have any of that same, like, oh yeah, they're good, we're going to take care of them, we go way back, Joseph did a lot for us. They're probably just like, why are they so special? Why are they given all this free reign?
Maybe I didn't say it before on the podcast, but maybe I talked to you about it. It could have been of the things like they did not want the previous pharaoh who was with Joseph. They probably did not want this to be recorded. It looks very bad. It doesn't look good. It's kind of a slap in the face to their own gods. If it was recorded, it doesn't show. You got to remember, their gods was,
yeah, you said this
was everything to them.
You saw it as you looked at it like a lot of them saw it insulting that Joseph was in power and he wasn't worshiping their gods. He was so clearly standing to his own God.
Yeah. So they kind of probably kept it on the low. It's like, hey, there's this guy, he's in charge right now and he's saving us. And they just probably kept it on the down low in history. So they just didn't write it down. And they didn't pass it on or whatever. But either way, basically 400 years passes. So that's a long time. If something isn't really recorded and it's passed down, from grandfather to a grandson or whatever, it's probably, how much do we know about our grandparents? And there should have been a lot better recording in our time. So imagine back then. You don't have Ancestry.com back then. You're not really able to look up what happened, just through a nice Google search. So if it wasn't ethically, I don't even know if that's a good word. If it wasn't really written down,
I don't even think that's a word.
Really written down,
for sure.
And if it was passed down, if it
wasn't ethically put down on paper,
ethically,
it sounds good.
Sounds right.
Sounds good.
But
either way,
kind of like a word.
It goes from one story to another, and basically, I'm going to bring up
Word
Vikings again. Ragnar, once somebody else comes and takes the place of a legend, that other previous legend kind of fades away and just dies in history if it's not recorded. So
they didn't record what the events of Joseph. Obviously, at one point they forgot, and then when the response of this Pharaoh that came to power, what he did was he set taskmasters over the Israelites to oppress them and give them hard laborious tasks like building up store cities. And one of the reasons I said earlier that some scholars believe that it took place during the reign of Ramses II is because they built the store cities of Pithom and Ramses. And that was dated to have been around that time as well, in the few things that we can actually record that happened. But his reaction as a pharaoh was to brutally enslave and then treat them harshly, to try to put them in their place, to try to control them.
It says, the more they afflicted, in verse 12, but the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were in dread of the children of Israel. So the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage and mortar and brick and in all manner of service in the field. And their service in which they made them serve was with rigor.
Yeah.
A lot of rigor.
I don't know what translation you're reading. I don't remember reading so much rigor in there.
It's the same translation I've been reading,
I'm going to
bud.
stop saying that word.
The other thing is that, like Joseph, there's no actual Egyptian historical record of even Moses being there either. But this
We
might
know there was a
tie
Moses. So the thing
This
is,
might
though,
tie in later, exactly how it's with Joseph. Why they didn't want to, write it down because it doesn't look good for the Egyptian history. It might play in the same case with this situation with Moses, because Moses, he gets adopted into the family, and then he basically ends up bringing the Hebrew God and, causing havoc among the Egyptian gods, and makes the Egyptian gods look like a bunch of Pee-wee Shermans.
Yeah, Egypt will rise up as kind of like that Babylon, like enemy of Israel, enemy of God, like representation of the world or the nations. And it's going to be this stark, the God of Israel versus the nations and power of the earth in the story as we continue. And this is kind of like the first thing we see, the world starting to reject the people of God and wanting to oppress them.
they did oppress them.
I mean,
they made them slaves
for a long time. And something interesting happened.
The Jews were slaves for a very long time.
400 years.
Even that isn't even actual. That's not even recorded in Egyptian history. There was no there was no context of Hebrews being enslaved by the Egyptians in Egyptian history. But that could be lost in the Library of Alexandria or places like that, or maybe the Vatican has all that information. They don't want to share it with us.
I mean,
maybe for this exact reason.
We have the Bible.
And, we know.
So we know that they were being oppressed. We know, everybody knows this. Anybody that's watched Prince of Egypt, the DreamWorks movie, which is super popular, has seen the opening scene of them crying in that song.
What's that song? I remember it was such a catchy song.
Welcome to the Meaning Podcast.
But there's a story that comes up here, a mini story in the story that I never hear told, and I would love to share, is these two, very lesser known heroes. If Nathan, if you could read from verses 15 to 22, I want to tell the story of Shipra and Puah.
Then the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Sephora, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, When you do the duties of a midwife for the Hebrew women, and see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you shall kill him. But if it is a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the male children alive. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said to them, Why have you done this thing and saved the male children alive? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are lively and give birth before the midwives come to them. Therefore, God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew very mighty.
Awesome. As everybody can hear in the background, Josh is playing the beginning of the DreamWorks movie song, which we probably shouldn't play
Yeah, we don't have
copyrights.
We don't have
to it,
copyrights
so
rights. to
I would
that.
recommend
Let's
stopping
just keep
it.
talking until he turns it off, so we don't
He's-
get.
What are they gonna
Josh,
do?
we
What are they gonna do?
Seriously, we
Sue
can't
us?
play other people.
Sue
They'll
us for
mute the
what?
whole episode.
Yeah, they'll take us down like major.
Wait,
platforms
'cause I wanna
like
get-
Spotify.
I want to
We're,
wait.
we're not listening to
Wait,
the
wait,
podcast.
wait, wait,
Say
this
that
one,
thing.
this
We're
one.
not gonna let you listen because
Josh.
it will get taken down.
Josh, why?
I'm sorry. I just like that part.
Deliver us.
It's
Deliver
so,
us.
They are so strict with that stuff. Like
It's
they
like-
will.
They literally
literally
have entire
mute-
departments.
They have people
Come
that
at
will just
me.
Mute.
Come
the
at
whole-
me.
They
Tell
will.
them to come here. Come to my
That's not
shop.
how that
and we'll
works.
have
They
a-
just mute
we'll have a-
you. They don't care.
Try putting
Anyway.
up that episode. They're just going to shut it down. So all this is for
Yeah.
no reason. Come at
No.
me. They just press a button. We don't exist anymore. We're a nobody right now.
First off, Disney
It
doesn't
is
even
so
own
easy to
Spotify.
crush us.
Anyway,
As it was probably distracting, Nathan was reading the very interesting story of Shipra and Pua. We know that, as Nathan read, as they were oppressing the Israelites, they were just producing more. Nothing was really stopping them. And if anything, is like the harder they treated them, the more the offspring they produced.
Yeah.
So-
what was going on in Pharaoh's mind? You know, it's just like, hey, there's these people. We don't really want them here. They're growing in size. We're scared that they're gonna join forces with an enemy army. And what do we do? Oh, let's try to kill all their firstborn. But who are we gonna make do it? Let's make their own people do it. Let's do that. The people
We
that
gotta
love
understand-
babies, not only just anybody. Let's just make people that love babies go and kill babies.
well, they view the Israelites like property.
Yeah.
So it's not like they viewed them as people. They were like, that's our property. We got to kind of, we don't need any more males.
But that's
See, that's
another
kinda-
thing as well.
Yes,
Why would they?
yes and no.
Why would they go
Um,
after the males? The women are the ones that have babies.
Because they could sleep with the women.
I know, but if you still have a bunch of grown women, even if there's fewer males, it's just you could still
They'll be half
reproduce.
Egyptian.
Here's the thing. I don't
No, I'm
know
saying, like-
exactly. Wait. Because all of a sudden we're at this point where they're enslaved. But when we left Joseph, they were not enslaved. They were. The Pharaoh literally is like, here, have this land. Blah, blah. The Israelites basically owned land in Egypt.
Well, they were
So-
given property to adopt.
So at what point? This is the confusing part. At what point did they just go into full on slavery? Was it this
I mean,
point?
We just
Yeah, literally,
read
they
that
just
when
read
a
that.
when a
They-
new
they-
king
that's
that
what
didn't
they-
know.
Yeah,
we
they
just
didn't know.
covered that up until now. That's the whole point. This guy comes out of nowhere and he doesn't.
I mean, this is kind of how it is. Like,
I get
they
that.
were like, man, there's so much work to be done today. If only we had a workforce, because I'm a citizen of Egypt and I shouldn't have to sweat. Hey, what are all those group of people over there? They look kind of
Okay.
strong.
But it made it seem like if you look, ask anybody that knows the Bible and ask them about, how many years were the Israelites basically slaves in Egypt, and they'll say 400 years. But from this context, we're basically looking at about 30 years, maybe somewhere around
No.
there.
We don't know how
There's
much
multiple
time,
generations.
Yeah, we don't
that
know
went
how
by.
much time took place between this part and Moses's time. Like, it doesn't give us. We assume that it was the majority, because remember, let's go back to the story of Abraham when he fell asleep when he was supposed to be awake, and he split the animals and made a covenant with God, and then God, as a burning torch in an oven, came and walked through the fire. Remember that he fell asleep and a great terror came upon him, and it said that for 400 years your people will be a stranger and a slave in a foreign land. And God told him. That's kind of where they get that, and then it ended up happening here. This is a
I think what it
fulfillment
was.
of the
I think what it
prophecy.
was as a slave wasn't necessarily. I know over here it says hard work and hard labor, which it probably ended up. But what if they accumulated themselves into so much debt to the Egyptians? Basically, think about it like in America: you buy things, you blah blah blah. Inflation goes up, you ended up getting in debt, and the only way to pay off your debt was to get to work. So
I'm sure
what if-
I'm sure they worked, but it wasn't until they were assigned taskmasters and people to actually enslave them and beat them and control them that it became hard. I mean, their lives were so hard that their cries literally went up to God.
Yeah, it got bad quickly.
Yeah, and it stayed bad for a while, generations.
I mean, he's straight up ordering them to murder the boys.
But these two women, they don't. In the face of the most powerful person in the world at that point, these two midwives who would have been more like the doctors in charge of overseeing, like, I don't think there was just two women giving birth to every child in all of Egypt or all the, you know what I mean? But
I think
these
it was
two
just
women,
in that area.
they
because
feared.
The
area of
Israelites were
Goshen
scattered about.
They were all in the area of Goshen. They weren't scattered about at all. They were in one section. That's where they stayed. And then they were actually taken to build up two storehouse cities, and they would build up these places where they would kind of like store up, kind of like Joseph did. Remember, he stored up like grain and stuff like that for the famine. Well, they kind of adopted that and made that a thing. And they built up entire little sections and cities and communities for that. And these two women, who are probably the ones that are in charge or overseeing all this area, Pharaoh goes to them and says, you need to kill, every time you see a boy, kill him. But they actually end up doing the opposite. It even says, like, whenever it's a boy, they helped it to live. Like, they would almost go out of the way to make sure it lives because they feared God. And I think it's really a really heroic and amazing and notable point. These two women that are not often glorified or not often talked about stood up against an oppressive and maniacal leader and feared God more than they feared Pharaoh. And God actually deals well with them and was kind to them and gave them families of their own. We don't know if they couldn't have kids before or what type of situation they were in, but obviously God blessed them. And I just thought, I really liked that story. I thought that was really cool. It's the first chapter, right before we get into Moses, and now we get into Moses with Exodus chapter 2. If you could read the first 4 verses.
And a man of the house of Levi went and took as wife a daughter of Levi. So the women conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, and she took an ark of bulrushes for him, daubed it with asphalt and pitch, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river.
Let's stop here because there's a lot there. It's just the first 4 verses.
He got married. So there's a guy that got married to a chick. They had a kid. They put the kid in a basket eventually to hide. There's
a lot of significance to the basket and Moses being pushed down. I think we should stop and talk about that for a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it starts off with
First of all, what if Moses was ugly?
Or it's not. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just there's significance. What's the significance?
Man of the house of Levi. Let's look at that first. The Levi, who was basically almost like his anger was cursed by Jacob because he was such a shrewd man, right? So Moses is coming from the line of Levi. I think that's a good
again
first
that
step.
shrewd word. Just this Josh's word of the evening.
I don't know.
Levi. That's eventually going to be, I mean, obviously Moses has a brother. That wasn't what I was meaning when I meant important. But, okay, so we look at, Nathan, you read it, and the word ark is used specifically. And I just think it's interesting because it's the same words. It's the same terminology that was used for Noah when he built his ark. And he used pitch and asphalt also to seal it in. And as Noah's ark was used as a vessel of salvation for his people, for the people of Noah and his family and all the human race, remember there wasn't any guiding mast or anything to help him guide through the water. Moses, as a baby, was also placed in this ark on one of the most dangerous rivers of all time to float down, where it's like infested with crocodiles, crazy large river like tides and whatnot. And it was guided by the hand of God, the leader that would lead for the salvation of God's people. There's a lot of allusions there. And the word ark there is also significant. I mean, the word is only used there for like, it's tebat, or it's like the only 2 places where that's used. It's not the same word used for the Ark of the Covenant later whenever Moses places the tablets and the budded staff inside of it and builds that golden ark. But it's just a vessel. It's just an allusion back to like that same vessel guided by God for salvation. And what's interesting also is that there are other holy basket stories like in history and through different religions. Are you guys aware of this? I know Nathan wasn't when I told him about it earlier, but Josh, you know what I'm talking about?
I mean, I've heard. Like, it's not that I wasn't. It's
So
just
there's a couple. I'm not gonna go too deep in it, but there's a couple other stories in history that have like babies put in a basket and put down a river. Like one of the most famous is Romulus and Remus were placed in the river and flown down, and the river, after they like kind of came to the bank of the river, a mother wolf, that's how they find Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome, and they take care of the babies until a farmer comes and finds them. There's also Sargon the Great, who was ancient king. Where was he from? Hold on, I have my little thing here. For king of Akkadian
wasn't that
Empire.
great. You don't even know where he's from.
Well, he was around the 2300 BC and had the same thing. He was born as an illegitimate son to a priestess, and they put him down in the Euphrates River, and he floated down until he was discovered and saved. And then there's also like a Hindu thing. There's like a Hindu hero.
Isn't Loki
Karna.
kind of the same concept?
Not at all.
Where he gets adopted into
He's
the family?
adopted, but that has nothing to do with baskets and rivers. These are like specifically they're placed in baskets and flown down a river to save their life. So there's like Karna, the Hindu story. I thought it was interesting to note that it's like that trope isn't solely in the Bible. That
it's used a lot, like the young.
It's a very specific thing. How am I the only person that's like into this? This is such a specific thing.
I'm just saying it's used a lot, like the young. It's like
well, it's the same concept with the flood, with creation, of course,
Simba.
other different
Run away and never return.
It's not the same at all.
Like Lion King.
It has nothing to do with it.
It's almost there.
It's the most specific story that you can start.
Okay.
I don't know. The Ark of the Covenant.
Either way,
would be,
an ark
box
of
or a chest,
bulrushes.
Yeah,
Okay.
the wood that they use is different, and the word ark in that original Hebrew was like known to be like something that carries something living inside of it. It's like, there's living beings.
Well, what
and
else was she
inside.
supposed to build?
Well, there's another word called Aran Habrit, which will be used for the Ark of the Covenant, which is usually used for inanimate objects inside of it. So there's significance there, but I guess we won't get too much into it.
She literally built a little boat that did not have to be steered, but was like as well made as she could have made it. Like,
Yeah,
I get
she
that
waterproofed
there was probably symbolic and even possibly even prophetic meaning behind all of it. But at the end of the day, she made what she knew. What she made what she knew was going to be safe, and she put the baby inside of it and tossed it down the river, knowing that it was probably going to end up where she wanted it to kind of end up, right? So we're going to get into that.
I don't know. I mean, how do you know that she knew? I mean, it had to have been close. Yeah, we're going to get into that. If you read verses 5 through 10.
Let me start. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. And when she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. So she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the maiden went and called the child's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So she called his name Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." Or water, whichever way you want to pronounce that.
Well, before
I
we
like
get
saying
to
water.
before he read that part, he also read, and his sister stood afar to know what would be done to him. Basically,
she saw that her mom put him in a basket and she followed it.
You think the sister, if she saw a crocodile, she hit it with a rock? Like there was this old Nintendo video game with baby Moses in the river.
What?
Yeah, there was the Bible stories video games back in the day. But anyway,
I've never heard of this before.
there was a Noah's Ark one where you throw the animals in the ark. You go around hunting animals.
You play Moses' sister, which it doesn't say here, but it's it's Miriam.
Well, you're carrying the baby, and then you put it in the ark, and then you have to I think you have to protect the ark.
Do you throw rocks at crocodiles?
Yeah, you have to
Moses
protect. You throw something. I forgot what it was. And then
amazing. I don't know how I've never played this game.
You can look it up on YouTube. The NES Bible. Let's play Bible Adventures for NES. It's very crazy, and they have a David and Goliath one. That was the best one.
Hey Nathan, continue to date yourself. How long ago was this?
I thought it's the Nintendo.
I'm just playing. Sorry,
you're not that much younger than me, man.
This was the 90s.
I was a little kid.
And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river.
As you do, I guess. That was just so the mom had to have been relatively nearby. She had to have not been like 5 miles, or maybe she was, but I imagine that if it was close enough for the daughter to follow the basket and appear there, that it was relatively near to where the palace would be. So they were in an area, because we know based on what happens. I mean, this daughter of Pharaoh comes, she bathes, she sees this baby. The baby's apparently a very beautiful baby, or good looking baby, a healthy baby. And
it was a baby, a beautiful.
I mean,
baby
it was a cute baby. It was mentioned multiple times.
Obviously, look, I'm pretty sure God made anybody that viewed this baby like that. That's a baby.
So it wasn't a cute baby. It was just God was like.
Here goes back to my whole thing of, I don't necessarily think that all of the Israelites were full on slaves, because Pharaoh's daughter.
Bring that up before.
I was trying that before, but it says in the Bible that they
Josh,
were.
where
you keep on saying they weren't.
Not all.
Why?
Either way.
Yes, all of them. They were all enslaved. That was the whole thing, except for Moses, apparently.
It just said that their workload was made harder. That doesn't say necessarily
the workload of their slavery. Josh, we're not arguing whether or not the Israelites were slaves in Egypt. That's not a debate.
I was trying to see if they were slaves, and it just said that they were like, imagine you go to work and your boss is just putting more work on you, more, a lot harder. But I think that there was, some of them were imprisoned, probably a lot of the men. But either way, how does she know? So that's an interesting one. How does she know that the baby is a Hebrew child? She's looking at him. Probably, let's just say he was most likely circumcised, right?
Because we didn't really touch on this too. We should have. I kind of glossed over this, but there was, after the 2 midwives refused to kill the children and they stood up to Pharaoh.
I mean,
Pharaoh decreed that.
Can I answer his question?
Let me finish, because we skipped this completely.
No, we didn't. It literally says, so the children of Israel were serving, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and brick and in all manner of service in the field. Yeah. And then before that, it says they set them to afflict them with burdens, to build for Pharaoh, supply cities, Pithom. They were enslaved to build cities, and they were forced to work in the field.
They were forced to work, stuff. But they were given wages. Slavery is without wages.
Not always at all. Actually, that's where you could work your slavery. You're enslaved, but you work off a debt. You said that yourself earlier.
But I said that. I know I said that. But we don't know if they were in debt or not.
So you're just,
my presumption was that they could have been in debt and they had to work it off. Or
they weren't. They were enslaved. Clearly, from the text, it says why they were enslaved, because they were a threat. They were multiplying greatly, and they were afraid. The Pharaoh was afraid that they could either rise up against them or ally themselves with an attacking enemy army and overthrow them.
Here's the way that I see
to control them. That's just
all
what the
these
Bible
nations.
says.
I see these nations kind of as a communist dictatorship type of thing. So you have a king, and everybody works together for the empire. Everybody does whatever is given to them to do. So if these people were instructed to build this, then they were instructed to build this. If the Shuites were like, hey, all the Shuites, they're all going to be people of the boats, and they're all going to be fishermen, and that's their job. Well, then that's their job. But the Israelites were given the task of building these.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Why are you dying on this hill of thinking that they weren't slaves? Like, that's kind of the whole point. They weren't allowed to leave. That's the entire,
I think that they were just part of.
This
they were
isn't
part of the kingdom.
This isn't a good argument. This isn't a good point. Like, this is just, you're bringing up a point that has no basis in like any type of evidence based on what we're actually telling the story of.
The reason why I'm saying
clear.
it, because it wasn't necessarily like they went to war with these people, captured them, and then made them slaves. These people
over
already
time,
living.
they were trapped there. Yeah, they were living there, and
they
then
were
given
living there.
taskmasters.
They made lives there. Even the Pharaoh's daughter, she without a threat or anything, she's like, "Oh, just go get me one of the Hebrew women." Blah blah blah. Oh, and then she got the lady. She's like, "Oh, well, I'll give you your wages." Well, why'd she have wages in the first place? Because she had a job in a society that functioned, where she wasn't a slave. Because if she didn't have wages, basically the Pharaoh's daughter could have just said, "Oh, well, this is what you're going to do for me. You don't really have a choice, or I'm going to kill you." Doesn't really coexist in the idea of slavery, really.
Here's a distinct difference, though, Josh. The Pharaoh ordered them to murder the children of these workers. So clearly there's a little bit difference in how the Egyptians viewed the Israelites. They didn't necessarily view them as, oh, there's just our workforce. No, it's like, yeah, we're killing your children.
Oh, the Jews weren't being murdered before they were put in concentration camp. We were just identifying them.
Yeah,
they were part of the society. Just wear this golden star.
They definitely didn't treat them like people, because they felt like they had the right to take their child from them and murder it.
And obviously they didn't have enough power to rise up and fight that.
And yes, maybe through the cracks, there's some good people, that didn't want to murder. It's not mentioning all the boys that were murdered. I'm sure there was a lot. I mean, wasn't there a verse that says that God heard the women?
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
If we stop debating on whether or not they were in slavery, that's kind of my part. I didn't expect to have to really flush out there. I thought that was kind of a given. That's the whole thing. They weren't allowed to leave. How are you a free person and you're a part of society when you're literally forced? And then it says,
because you're part,
comes in, he doubles their wages. They're not. They're
you're part of the empire. You're part of the kingdom.
Yeah, as a slave class that has very little, okay, I'll grant you, very little, if not any, rights to actual free society. They're not able to buy land. They're not able to be free. They're not able to go forth to worship their own God. Their children are being murdered. They're being suppressed by masters, which probably are not chosen by them. They were assigned taskmasters, and it was very, very harsh living, to the point where the mother had to hide her baby for 3 months and then put him in a river, which technically she was following what they said to throw him into the river, but he was spared. And when the daughter of Pharaoh saw a baby in a basket, they're like, oh, it's a baby in the river. The mother was it's definitely a Hebrew baby. Nobody else throws their babies in rivers except for the poor slaves that we're trying to control. And saw that was a clever ploy. The baby was cute. And the sister, she didn't say, go get me. The sister jumped out, which we know is Miriam, and said, hey, let me find somebody to help, to help raise this for you. And she said, perfect. That makes total sense. I'm a spoiled, rich princess daughter. I can do whatever I want. I don't want to work for this. Go find me a midwife. And it was the grace of God that actually ends up circling everything back to where the daughter, or Miriam, goes and chooses Moses's mother to actually bring as a midwife. And the mercy for Moses's mother was the fact that she was given a task of raising her child and being paid for it.
Such mercy that you're allowed to raise your child.
I mean, would it be better to just throw it and kill it in the river?
I know, but I'm just saying that just goes to show you right there that it's a mercy that you're allowed to raise your own child.
I'm not arguing whether or not they're slaves. That's just wild.
Clearly,
or there was like some of them that were slaves and there were some that weren't. I mean,
some weren't. Like, some slaves maybe had more rights than others. I don't know.
Yeah. There was house slaves and there was field slaves and American slavery.
But most of them
I don't think it was. What
do you mean? Like they were in slavery?
I
don't think that they were in full on slavery. Yeah. I'll say that they were. They were.
Keep that opinion. We're going to move forward.
They were, because like right after that,
we're not
literally.
I'm not arguing it anymore. We're
literally Moses
the title of the book is The Exodus out of Egypt, out of slavery. Yeah. That's not an argument.
They're stuck there. They're not really allowed to leave, but it's not technically slavery.
All right.
Nice.
So can we go on to
We're moving
to
on.
the other part?
So we're not reading any. I'm not going to read this part. Moses is given the distinct privilege of being raised as in the house of Pharaoh.
Because it doesn't say that.
What do you mean?
Where does it say the whole Prince of Egypt? Because if you continue next, she's like, Pharaoh's daughter draws him out. But where does it say that he's Prince of Egypt and all these songs?
He was risen up until a certain point, and then she was brought over. It literally says.
Okay, I get that part. But in Prince of Egypt, it made it seem like he was like
So the
king
woman
in designing cities, and
he was raised by the daughter of Pharaoh. So he was at the very minimum. I mean, Acts chapter 7 tells us that he was raised with all the wisdom and power of Egypt.
okay. So
there's biblical evidence.
It doesn't say in Exodus. I'm just saying this for the reader.
child
If you're
grew and
adopted
she
into
brought-
a royal family, you become a prince, basically.
And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And so she called him Moses. So she was raised by the daughter of Pharaoh. I don't think you have to jump to many conclusions to assume that he was of influence and at least educated.
But see, here's the thing I'm saying, Andrew and Josh. You guys, if you just strictly reading Exodus alone, you don't see the whole. Because I mean, somebody's like, "Oh, well, there's a movie about Moses and Prince of Egypt." You watch that and you read Exodus, like, well, where's the part where he's like an architect?
Again,
like,
remember that Exodus is just a part of a larger story.
I get it. It's
and
a part of a larger
verses
story.
in Numbers, there's verses in Deuteronomy that talk about Moses. He brings up kind of how he was raised and his strength of writing and this other things. There's context clues that we can draw from the fact that he was what happens next in his story.
Okay,
to see how
but
he
I'm
was
just
separated.
saying this to the people in people that are listening.
It's very clear in Exodus that he was raised with privilege.
But it's not very clear because it doesn't literally say that at all. It just says he was
absolutely does.
taken by Pharaoh's daughter,
And he was
and
raised
then
as
after
her
that
son.
he kills a guy.
You can assume that the son of Pharaoh's daughter grew up with privilege. Though.
Okay, that's an assumption, but it doesn't say that, Andrew. I'm just saying in Exodus, it doesn't literally say he grew up with privileges. It just says Pharaoh's daughter raised him, and that's it. It ends there. Because you know the whole story yourself already, you're already connecting those dots. But somebody reading this
I think
for the first time,
I think he's merging the Prince of Egypt movie with
it's because you already know how it is. I get it, but I'm just saying if you're just reading Exodus, just reading it chronologically, it doesn't really say all that. It does say it in Acts, and it says it later
listen to
on.
this.
If you read the book of Egypt or the book of Exodus, and you study the character of Moses and the context clues, you can correctly assume just from Exodus alone.
I'm not
standalone, you
arguing
don't
that
read
he
anything
didn't.
else.
I'm not arguing that he didn't
It's
get raised with
but
that.
it's pretty clear if you've ever read anything. You read based on the story and the context, you kind of pick it up. I don't need to use other sources in the whole story in the movie Prince of Egypt to assume that it says that he was raised by the Pharaoh's daughter and became her son. She didn't raise him in a cage in the basement and said, "You're my son, but I'm keeping you as a pet."
I'm just
then
pointing that out.
And there's another point if we continue. So we're going to continue here so I can kind of clear this up a little bit because I want to study Moses as an individual to figure out what type of person he was as we move on to the story. You have to see him as a person that was raised in this in-between. He's raised as a Hebrew who, again, remember, they keep in their identity and they're very proud of their identity after so many years of slavery and so many years of being in Egypt. They haven't melded completely with the society. So Moses is being weaned and raised up by his mother. So we have to assume that he's being taught at a very young age the traditions and the stories of his heritage. And he's also brought up in the house of Pharaoh. So he's being educated and lifted up and he's being challenged academically. And he's given a certain level of authority and influence. And he's become this kind of like super self-righteous, like justice-seeking individual who he has this, I believe, from the context I could read from the story, this savior. He has a savior complex where he wants to save people. And it tells you, it kind of, if you want to read, just start reading from verse 11.
I get that. But look, I mean, all I'm saying is maybe Pharaoh, like, okay, do you think the house of Pharaoh knew that Moses was Hebrew?
Yes.
So they knew that.
Of course. He said, this must be a Hebrew boy. Let's
Yeah,
raise it
so-
with a Hebrew woman.
Okay, so then Pharaoh
Then
knew it.
why did he let him live?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because he made an edict for him to be for all the male children to be murdered.
Because it's Pharaoh's
If
daughter.
he was
she
so
decided
afraid of
out her
Hebrew
own
boys.
mercy.
Yeah, so she decided.
She-
So it's kind of like
it's
Pharaoh
like a
looks at
special
him like
circumstance.
it's like an amusement to them. Like, look
Exactly.
at this, a Hebrew. So that's what I'm saying. He was raised. I think there's a difference. See, I look at Moses in a different way. Instead of the way most people view it, like you really portray, like, oh, he was just some headstrong leader raised to be or whatever.
He was a wannabe leader. I didn't say he was a headstrong
I think
leader.
more of he was like raised to kind of be an amusement by. He knew his place in the world, that he's not really Egyptian, and he's not all the way Hebrew. He doesn't know. It's like an identity crisis, and it's like he acts out of this sheer impulse because of all that, because he thinks that his own life, in a sense, is kind of an injustice because he's not accepted. He's not like truly Hebrew. He doesn't suffer like they do, but he's also not truly privileged like the Egyptians. I'm sure he was reminded all the time that he's not Egyptian and that he's not, even though, the daughter, the Pharaoh's daughter, whatever, adopted him. I mean, it still wasn't like, hey, you're truly a son. Because think about it, Pharaoh's daughter adopts a son. Wouldn't that kid be in line for, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's like a thing. That's like not. So I think that's more, he took that opportunity. I think he was very observant, learned a lot where he could learn. It was like God put him in a place, and it's like, you need to soak all this up. Because later on, I mean, he doesn't have a lot of self-confidence later on in the story. He doesn't really believe after he does what he's about to do, and then he runs away, and then God instructs him to go back to Egypt. He kind of doesn't see himself, he has like an identity crisis at that moment. I think that self-esteem issue probably came from here as well. I don't think, because like in the movies, I'm just saying this because there's a lot of movies, and there's a lot of, not only Prince of Egypt, but there's a lot of others, like
There's
old
the Ten
Moses.
Commandments.
Yeah.
Remember that movie?
Yeah. There's a lot of, they make it seem like Moses was like this, like he's the chosen one in Egypt, and everybody's like, look at this guy. And I don't think it was really like that. I think he was more like, kind of like, yeah, he's allowed to live. And then that's why whenever he does wind up killing the guy,
So let's
Pharaoh like literally was gonna kill him.
You're right, and that's kind of what I wanted. You interrupted what I was bringing up. I didn't say that he was this man walking around and everybody was kissing the ground at his feet. I said
That's what
that
Prince of Egypt made it seem like.
I know, but I didn't have that opinion.
all right.
I was telling you that he had an identity crisis, but he wanted to be a savior for his people based on how he acted. You could tell that he had an issue with pride. He had an issue with like being like a savior, and he thought in himself that he would be this individual that would rise up and secretly, revolt with his people, and they would get right behind him. And what ends up happening, from what you can see, is Nathan, read the verses 11 and 12 in chapter 2.
Now it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out to his brethren and looked at their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren. So he looked this way and that way. And when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 Hebrew men were fighting, and he said to the one who did the wrong, why are you striking your companion? Then he said, who made you a prince and judge over us? You said to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? So Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. When Pharaoh heard of this matter, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well.
Oh boy! Now this is what I was saying. You're absolutely right. Like he's expecting to like, oh, if someone's beating up my brethren, I'm gonna kill him. And he, like you said, acted on impulse, but he didn't feel like he fit in anywhere, because the moment he tries to go to his brothers, like, oh, we shouldn't fight, we should unite. They literally look at him as like, who the heck are you? We don't trust you either way. You were grown up in the past, so you were spot on with your character analysis, and that's kind of what I was trying to bring out. I wasn't trying to.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I
But
thought you were going to say Prince of Egypt references the whole.
I-
You told me to watch Prince of Egypt before this.
He did.
And I'm
He
like,
did.
I don't like the way they characterize
no,
him.
I wanted you to watch it so that we could address this because it was such a popular movie, and it's a lot of people look at that and go like, "Yeah, that's pretty biblically accurate." It really isn't. It really isn't in terms of the character. There was no familiarity. Like you saw, there's a whole scene.
My best friend,
Yeah,
brother.
there's a scene whenever
brother.
he runs away. He's like, "Oh, I must run away now."
Yeah.
And then like Ramsey's literally like, "Come back. Whatever I say, we can make it undo." No, Pharaoh was immediately like, "Go kill that kid that we were just tolerating up until now. We don't want him here."
You think
the Israelites
so
didn't
this
want
is
him.
Ramses first or Ramses the second?
So I don't know. I really don't know. A lot of people say probably
To tie
Ramses
into my
the second
whole
or
thing,
third. Yes.
To tie into my whole hypothesis.
If you say they're not slaves one more time.
Well, you got to imagine, and you got to remember that this isn't all of the Hebrews. There's Israelites and then there's Hebrews. At this point in time,
What?
they're not.
Stop.
Okay.
What? Explain.
Hebrews, Israelites, two different things
How?
at this point in time. Because at this point
Explain
in time,
why? How? I don't understand. I didn't know that.
no, you do know that because we literally just read the Bible together. What? We have freaking 20 episodes. Oh, no.
This is episode
Yeah,
21,
20
Josh.
episodes. Yeah. We have 20 episodes of us going through the Bible. Israel is Jacob and his line after, right? That's Israel. But there's Esau. I'm sorry, I'm saying it like a horse. There's Esau that's out and about. He's doing his own thing. There's all the other sons of Lamech or whatever. There's other people out there that come from, I don't know why I said Lamech, but there's other people that come from the line of Abraham
Ethically.
that are scattered about. Ramses II, apparently in Syria or whatever, fought some of the Hebrews. He fought Hebrews and he won the war and he enslaved them. And at that time, this is about 1300 BC or something around there. He fought them, he won, and he took a bunch of them back. And then, you know what he does? He literally describe 40. He puts taskmasters to rule over them, and he makes them work with bricks and stuff like that. So you have prisoners of war. So imagine you're going to war. Let's just go back in previous history a little bit, just a little bit. You have Japanese people that are living here in America, and then all of a sudden we're at war with Japan. You know what America does at that point? They basically go crazy, and they put a bunch of Japanese people in camps, but not all, just a lot of them, and they start treating people indifferently. Same thing with the Italians. Same thing with German people that are living in America. They treat them badly, even though they're not actually at war with them. They're at war with the nation of Germany, but they treat the German Americans here badly. So it's the same thing about, let's say back then, there's a good group of the Israelites of Hebrew people. Let's separate the Israel and Hebrew. There's a good group of Hebrew people that are enslaved. And then there's people that are not enslaved, but are just treated harshly because there's become such a negative look on the Hebrew people by the overall general Egyptian population. That might be also why this Pharaoh became super scared of the Hebrew people supposedly rising up and trying to fight them. Maybe. But it just, I don't know. That's kind of where I was just going a little rant.
So
There's nuggets of truth in what you're saying. Yeah, you're right. That could be an idea. Like if there was to try to blend in the historical proof to what
we're seeing all of this from a Hebrew's point of view. That's what we're seeing.
To not confuse people, I'm gonna say that we should probably just use those as the same, because whenever other people's, like for example, Moses flees to Midian, the land of Midian, which is a son of Abraham, Abraham and Keturah.
Yeah.
Remember Abraham's second wife. They were known as Midianites. They weren't called Hebrews. They were called Midianites, and they were named by specific names. Even the sons of Esau, the Moabites, the Edomites. There are specific titles for those tribes, those nomadic tribes. Maybe they were classified by Egyptians
agree.
as Hebrews. Like when they're looking at them, they're not calling them the Moabites, they're calling them, or the Midianites, they're calling them the other Hebrews. It could be. I'm not going to completely dispute that.
I'm not looking at you and be like, oh, you North Carolina.
But I'm not going to, I think we should move on from the point of whether or not they were slaves and how they were treated, because that's pretty much crucial to the entire story of the book of Exodus. That's kind of like the whole point. The Israelites that were in Egypt were in slavery, forced labor slavery, and they were there for a long time. And they were in need of a liberator. They were in need of, freedom and a savior. And
I need a hero.
That's kind of the whole point. And Moses, his life is kind of separated into 3 40-year categories. His first 40 years, because up until now, before he runs off and after the murder, he's about 40 years old. And he spends that first 40 years growing in Egypt and all the power and wisdom of Egypt. And then he has this 40 years now having this moment where I think we kind of read it quickly, where they're just like, who are you to be savior over us? Or who elected you judge? And that crushes him. And when he sees that his life is being sought after, that destroys him. He literally never felt that place, like Nathan said, in either location, either with the Egyptians or with the Israelites. And now he's lost both of them. They're seeking his life. And
So tell me this.
He abandons everything.
And
runs and sits next to a well.
If you're a slave and this high-ranking official wants to help you, you're most likely going to let them help you. I'm just kind of saying. He saw 2 Hebrew men.
Moses was the high-ranking official.
Yeah, Moses was the high-ranking official. He's a prince of Egypt. He's somebody that can give authority. He's somebody that can make their lives better. And they literally just discard him. It's like, dude, just get out of here. So if these 2 people were treated that badly, they would have accepted his help. But they didn't. Either they're complete. What do you mean, not necessarily?
Because they didn't. It's not like he could have done anything in that moment.
Either they're complete idiots or their lives weren't really that bad.
Well, something happens to people whenever they're enslaved for that long, whenever they're hundreds of years, generational like slavery, they don't want to draw more problems on themselves. They would rather not. And what ends up happening is exactly that fear. And Moses, in this point in time in his life, he doesn't have God sending him with this mission. It's just Moses and his own power. And he doesn't have a whole lot of power. Like Nathan said, it's all kind of like an illusionary level of power. He personally is probably comfortable, but it's like he tried to start making waves and moves. If he tried to like start, liberating the captives there in Egypt, then probably just like he killed a taskmaster, they immediately dropped him to the level of what he really belongs. And were like, it's time to kill him. And he knew that.
I agree. They were extremely racist towards the Hebrews, and Pharaoh.
I don't think the Hebrews viewed Moses as any type of fit. I mean, they just saw him like that's just a lucky guy. He's not like an import. He doesn't command us.
Yeah, he can't do anything for real. He doesn't actually have real influence and power.
No, you're right. Like a plaything for Pharaoh. They probably all saw. Everybody saw
Pharaoh,
it that way.
Pharaoh's daughter.
Like he's just tolerated. Like Nathan said, his presence is literally just tolerated for 40 years, and he gets to get some benefits here and there. But it's probably his whole life was just being reminded constantly that he's a dirty Hebrew, lack of a better term. And
he fled to Midian. So
Moses ends this chapter of his life in Egypt, in the house of Pharaoh, being discarded by everybody. I literally, because of the way he acts in the next kind of chapters of the story, Moses is later described in the Bible as the meekest man on the earth, the most humble. And I believe that shows that maybe in his personal life, in his youth, in his beginning, that's kind of where I get this idea that he had that self-confidence, that pride that was so great that he thought he could do anything. And that was crushed so thoroughly in his life by the events that happened, by the journey that he's going to go through, that he pretty much gives up on everything. He goes into Midian, he sits next to this well, and he still has this character, like this characteristic of like, justice seeking and righteousness, where if he sees these girls being accosted by these other shepherds and they're trying to feed their camels at the well, or they're trying to feed their shop, he's not going to let them just be overwhelmed. He's going to run them off. And that's what happens in the next couple verses. Nathan, if you want to read from verses 16 to 22, we'll see kind of the way Moses sets himself up at the lowest point of his life in Midian.
Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled the troughs to water their father's flock. Then the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. When they came to...
Why are you saying flock like that?
Flock. When they came to Reuel, their father, he said, "How is it that you have come so soon today?" And they said, "An Egyptian delivered us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock." So he said to his daughters, "And where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him that he may eat bread."
Just helped you. Could you give him a little hospitality?
Then Moses was content to live with the man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Moses, and she bore him a son. He called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have been a stranger in a foreign land." Now it happened in the process of that time that the king of Egypt died. Then the children of Israel groaned because of their bondage, and they cried out, and their cry came up to God because of the bondage. So God heard their groaning. God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God acknowledged them.
Yeah, it's probably better to finish. I just think it's funny that
I'm not going to leave that last
you ever
verse.
stop when I tell you to stop.
No,
you
because
just figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, because like, why would I stop abruptly? Just finish it off.
It's definitely fine. I was going to use like God's concerning remembrance as a second, like a kind of a transitional segue portion, but that's fine. Because I think it's interesting to start. And
you don't always get what you want in life.
Usually
you
I
gotta
don't.
just be fluid like water.
Usually I argue whether or not they were in bondage or not.
Hey, so Moses gets married.
They really fast forward through a lot. In those few verses, they make it seem like Moses goes over and during lunch you're like, "Marry Zipporah." Like that doesn't happen so quickly.
No, dude. What really happened is they got to know each other for years and then
dated slowly. Moses adopted the family
sent
business.
each other letters like, "I like you. Do you like me?" Yes. Check.
How about the
yes,
family? How about the
no.
family religion?
Because
Because they didn't believe in
that part.
Yahweh.
Well, first
They
of all,
knew
they
about
believed
Yahweh.
in Yahweh.
No, they believed in Baal. Yeah, they were Baal, Ashtoreth.
the
They believed in the
Midianites
same
later
gods.
on would be worshipers of, but at this point they were high priests. He was a high priest. It was like an honorary title because his name was Reuel. Who was Reuel? First of all, have you ever heard that name as being Moses' father-in-law?
Reuel.
Because there's actually a different name for Moses. This is father-in-law. That was probably, do you guys know who
Jethro.
More like Jethro. So why is it saying that Moses' father-in-law was Reuel?
Raul.
Where does it say that?
It literally says his name is
When
Reuel.
they came to Reuel, their father, he said, "How is it that you have come so soon today?"
It doesn't say Jethro. I have an answer. I brought it up. I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to like stump you. I was just saying that's something I noticed while I was studying, and it's something that is brought
Weird
up.
name to say, spell Raul.
It's Reuel. It's another name for Jethro. Others believe that Reuel was actually like the name, while Jethro itself was an honorary title. Remember, kind of like Abimelech, or like it's the name. Jethro was a priestly name, kind of meaning excellence or your excellency or the excellence, so some have also speculated that Reuel was the name of the leader of the tribe, and then like all the children, like Jethro was probably the son of Reuel, and like how everybody was known as the Israelites, it was another name adopting like one of the children in the tribe. But not to get too confusing, I just wanted to let you know that it says Reuel there, and anybody that reads that, just look at Reuel as another phrase or another way that they called Jethro. And Jethro and Reuel are the same person, Moses' father-in-law.
Either way, Jethro, they were kind of like a Druids type of belief system.
Yeah, but they weren't
believed-
worshiping Baal. Let's just go ahead and like nip that in the bud right there. Because if they were if they were demon worshiping, and Baal very famously required.
They
a lot of
believed in
human
magic.
sacrifices.
They believed that they believed in all that.
Later on,
they believed
the
in
Midianites-
reincarnation. They believed
they
that
would
God. What?
Later on, the Midianites would be a thorn in Israel's side and fall into a lot of idol worship and like that. I don't think that Moses would have spent 40 years with a bunch of people that did witchcraft, and God just like, I'm cool with that. You're good now.
So then why does later on
say.
Jethro, when all of this is going on, why does later on Jethro accept that God is the God of all? He's like, oh, God, your God must be the God of all, or whatever.
I wasn't saying that he was worshiping the same God that Jacob and Isaac and Abraham were worship, like he was that way.
Well,
But I don't think
Yahweh.
he was specifically worshiping Baal. Baal is going to become a very specific God that's later worshipped by different nations, and the Israelites will fall into worshiping them over and over again. But at this point in time, in this early part of Israel's history, I think we should just kind of leave it at, he was just
Why?
a leader, a spiritual leader, a leader that believes in. I don't think he was. I mean, because there's no evidence it would have said in the Bible, and he was a worshiper of this God or that.
Why would it have said that?
Because Moses knew him.
Because Moses
he
was
wrote
one of the
this.
most important, religious figures bringing about the law of God. I think he would have included a specific detail like that. Jethro later on becomes a major advisor to Moses while he has the nation of Israel exited into the desert. Moses.
It's the same concept as Joseph being married in to a high priest's daughter of Egypt, someone who believed in Ra.
I think it was
Why wouldn't Moses also marry somebody that doesn't? I mean, why does that sound so outlandish?
It's not just that God specifically. I don't know if they worship that. I don't know what gods they worship, but we know that at this point, you're right. In Moses'
Literally,
life,
look it
he
up.
has given up on everything. He's not following God at this point.
What God do the Midianites worship?
That's the problem.
They worship?
The Midianites follow hundreds and thousands of years of the Israelites' history.
Baal is just one of them. Baal was never just a one type of God because Baal was part of a I forgot the word, but polytheistic type of thing. You worship multiple gods.
Yes.
And Jethro was of that belief. Jethro believed in all that, believed in magic, believed in all those crazy things. That's why in the movie Prince of Egypt, it never shows, they did it really lightheartedly, just like how they did the whole Pharaoh marrying his daughter type of thing. I know we didn't really touch on that too much. It didn't really hit that too hard, but it shows it in the movie. And just like in the movie with Jethro, it literally just shows them dancing around the fire, doing all these ritualistic type of things, but it never shows him praising God. It just shows him being like this spiritual hippie type of guy that's just like, oh, we just all must love each other and look at the stars and blah, blah, blah.
I did read that, and it does say the God, but in the movie, but we're not using that as a context for what you worship. I did read this a little bit, and I just reminded myself with a quick search again. At this point, Jethro, coming from the Kenite line of the Midianites, they also settled near the Israelites in the same area, especially when they come into the Promised Land. He did worship Yahweh. That was
he ends up worshiping
kind of descended
Yahweh.
From he was kind of in a different way because he was still a descendant of the children of Abraham and Keturah. And he wasn't.
He knew of
worshiping
Yahweh, and he did. I agree,
but he wasn't worshiping Baal and other kind of very known demonic gods that were very ruthless in their service and their worship, where they would require a lot of blood, a lot of witchcraft. He wasn't doing that.
Well, then Google's lying to me then.
Usually, because there's a lot of lying in the Midianites. There's more than hundreds of years. There's different sections. They're not always cool with Israelites. So it's kind of tough. But there are specific lines because they had more than one son, more than one Kenite and Jethro, and it goes down into different. They all sat in different areas, and they believe different things as the years go on. The tribes grow, and they kind of become their own little sections. So that's why we have to be careful with that and kind of establish, at least from the beginning, Jethro or Ruel. He was a priest in the way that was worshiping one God. A lot of scholars believe he was worshiping Yahweh. I will do more research on that, and if I'm wrong, we will touch back on that. Or if you guys know, just let us know, so we don't have to do research. Email us at greatermeaningpodcast@gmail.com. But
look out for that merch.
So moving on, Moses is now in this 40-year period of solitude in the wilderness. He's living amongst the Midianites, and he's fully given up on his Egyptian heritage. He's given up on his Israelite heritage. He's just married to Zipporah. He has a son. And when he has a son, he names him Gershom and says, I have become a foreigner in a foreign land. And remembering kind of like I related to kind of how Abraham's attitude was whenever he was buying the land for Sarah's burial. He's like, I am about a stranger in a stranger's land. Kind of had that same attitude of misplacement. He didn't feel attached to anything. He's just kind of letting the years go by. He's raising his family. He's kind of fallen into obscurity and mediocrity and kind of like just.
I mean, he has a family.
He's just living a regular life.
Given up and gave up. Bro,
he absolutely
it's a different season of life. It's like he's in a different place. He came to accept his place. He thinks this is his place in the world, being a foreigner in a foreign land. He believes this is where everything that I've gone through has brought me here, and this is where I belong. I have a family. I have this. I think he's happy here. I don't think he's just like, I'm just staring at the stars like, man, I want to free my brethren. I don't think
he's doing that either, but any desire for that is gone, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any of that like ambition.
I guess
anymore.
The wording is just like, he gave up.
You're right.
It's not that he gave.
Well, he did. He doesn't identify with anything in his heritage, and it's clear from his like the way he, as we go on further through the story, we'll see these things that he does, the way he responds to God's calling, the way he raised his family, including his son. He doesn't circumcise his son. Yeah, he doesn't tend to any of the law. That's the one. There's no law yet. There's one, like God said, do this as a physical sign that you are my people.
Yeah.
Moses doesn't even do that. So that's like a key indicator of how he saw his spiritual and heretical like heritage, like how his belief system. You're right. He probably was happy.
Yeah. He didn't see himself. He saw himself as
so happy, in fact, that God, when he hears the cries of the Israelites, he decides finally to make a call, and it's time for God to allow this period of suffering and bondage to end. We read words like God remembered, and again, he remembered or remembering. Remember, we spoke about this whenever we were talking about Noah on the flood and what was going on. And like, did God just forget? And like, oh yeah, I forgot. Oh man, they were over there just suffering. I should have I left the pot on the stove too long. No, it was think of remembering as like, and now the time has finally come to pass, or the completion of the allotted time for this specific portion of their history. It's time to now rise up and act. And he calls Moses.
Baking cookies, you put the cookies in, but you're waiting for that timer to beep, 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 beep.
Yeah.
So you can pull the cookies out.
And you hear it and you remember that you put the cookies in, but it was also the right time. And it wasn't like you forgot. It's just now it's
exactly
time. Perfect.
See, these Israelites needed to cook. They needed to cook.
Nathan, if you would read the first 6 verses of chapter 3 of Exodus.
Okay.
We're going to go into Moses and the burning bush.
Nah, this is the pivotal. This is the meeting point.
This is the climax, yeah.
Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. So when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God.
Now, probably one of the most recognizable images, if you like think of like
Exodus chapter.
one of the most recognizable like images is that Moses in the burning bush, a guy standing in the desert in front of this bush that's on fire and it's not getting consumed. It's been thought about a lot. It's been talked about a lot. And here, after 40 years in the land of Midian, Moses comes to this. He's just doing what he was doing. I mean, he was following his father-in-law's flock. And he comes to a place where he was there many times before. I mean, he wouldn't have just gone to he was probably on that mountain
He
quite
does his
regularly.
routes.
He does his routes. But today was different than any other day. He was on Mount Horeb, or otherwise known as Mount Sinai. And the Lord appears to him. It says the angel of the Lord appeared to him amidst the burning bush.
In the
On the
midst
mountain
a
of
burning
God.
bush.
Was it Jesus?
Oh, you're saying was that Jesus that appeared to him in the burning bush?
I just remember just that idea that we've talked about. And it comes up again, that the angel of the Lord phrasing. But, was it an angel? Was it just a fire? Was it another representation?
Well, there was
of Christ?
a point in Jesus' life where he is talking to Moses, the transfiguration.
Oh, Josh.
Did he just go back in time?
Yes.
Did he exist at the same time?
Did he exist at the
Multiverse.
same time? Does Jesus exist in every time?
Yes.
If Jesus, at that point, he was physical, and when it goes to the burning bush, his spirit goes. So the angel of the Lord, that's a little too outlandish, maybe.
What do you mean?
It's not that outlandish. No, I mean, honestly, some people believe at the transfiguration. I mean, that's kind of like some people glimpsed the fact
'cause we
that
talked about it
Jesus is the
before.
Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
He's there all the
Yeah.
time.
I think that
The concept of Jesus being a physical representation and him appearing back then, basically his whole moment of the transfiguration, for him to be physical, he had to have been born, right? So if he had to be born to be a man, he had to have gone through that process, but he is God, so he can go and he can coexist throughout all of time. So at that time of transfiguration is basically when a lot of this stuff started to happen, where he said he met with Moses, right? At that,
it was Moses
at the
and Elijah on either side of him.
Yeah.
Yes, but what happens with Moses, right? We have this whole burning bush situation. And then what happens with Elijah?
I think it's a funny imagining. Probably not this instance. It probably was Moses whenever he was talking with God on Mount Sinai. Because here the conversation, if it is that, was kind of like, imagine the way that Moses is arguing with God here. Moses does not just see God and then go. God says, Moses, I've chosen you to go and liberate
They have to
my
be
people.
in the same place.
Moses fights with it. And Moses kind of rejects God multiple times. But before we get into that, I think that God is, or Jesus is, outside of time. He's everywhere all at once. And it could be, but I don't know if that's that moment that he chose.
Here's something. Can I say something that's kind of like will make your brain scratch a little bit?
Sure.
So you said, at the transfiguration, Moses was on one side, Elijah was on the other. What if he's talking to both of them in their respective times at the same time?
That's what we're saying. Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
But like Elijah at the same time.
Bro,
and
that's what he's saying.
at the same
Guess
time.
what? Jesus, when he has
guess I just said it more
transfiguration
clearly.
moment, he's on a mountain. When Moses is speaking to God, he's on a mountain. When Elijah is speaking to God, guess where he is? He's on a mountain. They're all on different mountains.
Mountains are really important.
Jesus is on Mount Tabor. Moses is on Mount
Horeb.
Horeb. Blah, blah, blah.
Elijah's on Mount Carmel at the time when he fought the priests. And
Yeah, so I mean,
No,
mountains.
Elijah went to Mount Sinai, And then the Lord told Elijah to go on top of the mountain so that he could speak to Elijah. So Elijah's on the same mountain that Jesus is on.
Oh yeah, he went on this. No, Elijah went to Mount Horeb, the same mountain that Moses was on.
No. Yes. Elijah and Moses are on the same mountain.
Don't you remember
Jesus is on a different mountain?
Don't you remember how we kind of talked about that Jesus was on Mount Horeb during the Transfiguration? That some people say the other mountain, but there are some people that believe he was on Mount Horeb at the same time, because that's where. Remember that whole thing where the idea where that's where the angels from the book of Enoch came and made an evil pact, and then Jesus went there to kind of unwind that and show that even though the plans was to
basically that
seed,
like another concept of Mount Olympus.
I don't know about Mount Olympus. I was just saying,
yeah,
but
we're not going into the whole Greek thing.
Either way, God comes to Moses in the form of a burning bush. Now, I do want to address something that was kind of viral on the internet for a while, that, you know, very popular thought and school of thought with like Joe Rogan and other writers, and there's different articles that are written about it. You know,
were they stoned?
Was Moses hallucinating on some type of hallucinogenic off the acacia tree? And there's specifically, when I was doing some research, there's a couple articles written by a Guardian that was posted to the Guardian, written by a guy named Benny Shannon, that was used kind of out of context, that talks about that, you know, that burning on fire could be one of the reasons that Moses hallucinated. And then not only that when all the children of Israel kind of surrounded that mountain, that there was this mass hallucination that they were having in that moment, and seeing God and seeing the smoke and the fire and all that. But the funny thing about that is that Benny Shannon himself, the guy that's quoted in all this, comes out with another article that writes like, I never said that. That's not even considered, and that's not even really taken seriously by Jewish scholars, because first of all, the acacia tree there's like, if you look at things like ayahuasca, there isn't just like a plant that you light on fire and you get high. There are multiple ingredients. There's a minimum of 2 different plants that have to be mixed with other ingredients, and it's usually served ceremonially by like a shaman. And it's the same thing with the acacia tree. The acacia tree is actually the same tree that the Ark of the Covenant is made out of. And it's a wood that's grown around that area, but it takes multiple ingredients and other plants that also grow in that area, but it takes multiple things and then mixed together in a specific way to induce some type of hallucinogenic effect. Also, it's extremely, like, out of every report that they've ever done when it comes to like ayahuasca or these type of spiritual hallucinogenics, you know, ditryptomethamine, I don't even know how to say the word.
DMT.
Yeah, DMT. Nobody ever has the same trip. Everybody's always tripping differently. There are similarities. They come to a same point, but the journey, it's very...
You're saying in a mass
hallucination for them to have the exact same from beginning to end.
I wouldn't go that far, because that's kind of debatable, because there are,
from the studies they've done up until now, if you read the reports I've read, they don't.
I mean, I've read that people have had,
they reached similar like states of feeling, and they've reached similar like geometrical, like deity like shapes of life.
I fundamentally disagree that they were tripping.
We absolutely do.
Either way it goes, that's just like.
But if he was, imagine Moses just looking at this bush. He's like, it ain't.
Well,
burning.
He couldn't have been tripping, because I mean, there's so many other things that happen right after that. Obviously, God was with Moses.
Well, the first thing that happens is God says to Moses to remove his sandals, because that's holy ground.
Yeah,
and I did a little bit of research on that. It's just like, I thought that was really significant. Why take off your shoes? But it's just showing an early sign of reverence and acknowledgement of God's dominion, and then also
what
reverence
I think
for his presence.
Is that he's grounding himself to the earth.
Interesting.
Our bodies are basically, we have a certain amount of electricity that runs through our bodies. It's also not good for us to wear shoes. If you're grounded to the earth, it helps basically sink yourself to the earth. I know it sounds very hippie-like type of thing, but we have a certain amount of voltage in our bodies, our heart, everything. we're like a little. I mean, think about it.
There's
like
a
even
certain amount
static.
of electrical currents that run through the body to make it work. Their neurons, your brain.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
okay.
with all this, like even right now, with all this 5G that we have, with everything we have now, like when you're holding your phone, you have more current in your body. So now when you're thinking like, oh man, why do I feel so sick? Why do I feel like this? It's because you're not grounded. You're wearing shoes. You're inside your house. Wood is not a conductor of electricity, so you're not grounded even when you're inside your own house. So you're just everywhere you're going. You have all this extra energy inside of your body, and it's messing up your body. So
I get that, but how does that have anything to do with what Moses didn't have a cell phone?
because God, I mean, look at God basically like a Mother Nature type of thing. God's the creator of everything. Anything that has life, which is basically all of Earth, if you connect yourself to it, you're connecting yourself to God, theoretically. So it's the same concept like how we talked about even earlier with Jacob putting his head down on the stone. I mean, I know that you guys kind of laughed at it, but you're connecting yourself to God. I know us as Christians, we don't like to see it that way. It's like because
Grounding-
it's very
Grounding is
What?
definitely a thing, and it's popularized today, and I don't know too much about it to kind of speak it. I don't think that was the purpose behind it. I think it was more of a reverence thing. There's different, like, even Levitical rituals that have to do with, like, removing sandals, and it's unrelated, but
maybe it's both. A little, you never know. God,
why doesn't he
tells
do
us,
it?
like-
There's so many times God works with the prophets and other people. Nowhere else other than like with Joshua does he say, remove your sandals because this is holy ground. He doesn't tell Isaiah, remove your sandals. He doesn't tell.
maybe they weren't wearing sandals at the time.
Probably.
well, what does it say? Holy.
Dude, they're already
Look at that word. It's holy ground.
Because God's
So how
presence
dare
was
you?
there.
It's holy ground. The ground itself is holy.
Well, then theoretically,
So if
we
you're
should never
entering
wear
the
shoes
place,
anywhere. If all of ground and all of the dirt is holy, then why would we ever wear shoes?
it's all
outside?
connected to God. But it's some of these places are more holy than others from the looks of it. Because if the presence of God is in an area and you're stepping into that area for God to fully connect with you, you need to connect with God. So it's not just a reverence thing. I think over time it became more of like a more of a respect thing. But why? Why do we have this idea? God just didn't want crumbs in his house? Is that why? He didn't want dirt in his house?
I don't know. I know that there's a Levitical ritual of halatzah. I was like doing research about like removing shoes and things like that. And remember it's kind of a throwback to the Judah and Tamar story. But there's actually like it becomes a law where if a widow woman, her brother refuses to marry her and give her heir, then they actually do a ritual in front of the elders. And what the widowed woman does is she spits in the face of the brother and declares in a loud voice, "This be done to the man who does not build up his brother's house." And he removes the sandals of the brother in front of the elders, spits in his face, and makes that proclamation. And then that person is then forth known as the unsandaled one, But that has nothing to do with this particular portion. I was doing that research, and I thought that was kind of interesting how it
Did you
connected
know?
with a Levitical law.
Well, even tying into like how we were talking with taking your shoes off, also the way we praise and worship. Why do you have your palm your
It's a sign of submission, supplication
From a
to
sign-
God.
okay, but
The Bible
why?
also tells us to lift holy hands. Men should pray everywhere, lifting holy hands.
Okay, if we look at it also from an energy point of view, like your electric type of thing in your body, when your hands are open and they're raised up, there's a certain amount of you basically become like an antenna. It's not even like oh, this is crazy talk. They put the meters on the bodies and you actually become more like an antenna. If you close your fists, what?
If you close your fists,
Let's continue.
If you close your fists, you don't get, it's not as effective. But if you, with palms up, it's something about the palms, that if your hands are open and they're raised up as high as you can, there's a certain amount of energy that can flow through your body. It's like an electric energy.
Just like if you put a metal rod on top of a hill in a storm.
Yes.
I mean,
but now imagine if your shoes are off and you're grounded to the earth.
Yeah, you're a conductor.
Yoga people do this. There's a reason why it's done. I'm not saying that yoga is good. I'm just saying like there's a reason why all these other like beliefs do it, and it's more than just a reverence thing. It's more than just a submission thing. It's an actual connection that you're doing.
I think, yeah. I mean, when it comes to the story of Moses at the burning bush, I think it was just a sign of acknowledgement and reverence, and for that place where God decided to come down and where he will come down, to respect it. And those shoes that kind of carried him everywhere else, that went all over the other places. This is a new place, a new era, if you will, for Moses, a new beginning and a new calling. And God wanted to show a separation before his holy presence. I think that the angel of the Lord, when it shows that was represented inside the fire, that was the presence of God, whether it's the Holy Spirit or Jesus or, whatever form God wanted to show. The way that God speaks in the continuing verses here, the next one's coming up, it's speaking with a presence. It's speaking with authority. It's not speaking as it's speaking through a messenger. And Moses removing his shoes or removing the items that carried him in other places, and now he's completely naked, barefooted, and open before God. It's just a sign of submission and reverence to that place where God decided to come and meet with the individual that he will use as a catalyst of liberation for his people. Now, God uses this moment to reveal himself to Moses. And Moses doesn't hide his face until God says, I am the God of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You see, God speaks to him before then. He says, remove your feet or remove your shoes. He goes before and sees that there's a fire that's not burning. But it's not until God identifies himself that he remembers. He's like, oh, wait, you're not supposed to see God. If this is really that God, I have to hide my face. It shows us just how out of touch Moses was up until this point with his spirituality, with his connection to God, with his heritage. And God uses this moment in this miraculous way to call Moses into action. And I don't know if I'm going to make you read every single, like the rest of it. It's a lot. It covers multiple chapters, but what I want to do is it separates into 5. It continues into chapter 4. But essentially what ends up happening is God calls Moses, and Moses actually rejects God 5 times. The first time God calls Moses, Nathan, if you would just read the beginning, the first part, verses 7 through 10 in chapter 3.
Okay. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. I did not know I was going to read all those. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt.
And Moses rejects God in verse 11 the first time. He says, who am I? Essentially breaking down into an argument, like, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and I should bring the children out of Egypt? Moses at this point doesn't believe he's good enough to do such a task. And he just, has that fight inside of him. He's confronted with this incredible supernatural vision, this crazy situation. And his first reaction is, I'm not good enough. And then God comes to him and reassures Moses.
I'll certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. He
literally says, he reassures him, says, don't worry, Moses, I will be with you. And Moses responds in verse 13 with pretty much asking for a name, like, who should I even send? Who should I even say that sent me? And then, saying that I don't have the answers.
And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he
I
said,
love that.
thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. Moreover, God said to Moses, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever. This is my memorial to all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, appeared to me, saying, I have surely visited you and seen what is done to you in Egypt, and I have said I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. Then they will heed to your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the king of Egypt, and you shall say to him, the Lord God of the Hebrews has met with us, and now, please, let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. But I am sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go, no, not even by a mighty hand. So I will stretch my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders, which I will do in its midst. And after that he will let you go. And I will give these people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall be, when you go, that you shall not go empty-handed. But every woman shall ask of her neighbor, namely, of her who dwells near her house, articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing. And you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters. So you shall plunder the Egyptians.
Boom. I mean, I didn't expect him to read all that, but
I can't stop reading it.
That was what's
good.
beautiful. What's beautiful about that is God's rebuttal to Moses in that moment is not only does he give him that great famous line, I am that I am, that name of God he reveals to him, but he reassures Moses a third time by revealing to him all the events that are going to happen. He doesn't let him even be like, don't worry, let me lay out what's going to happen and how I will deliver you. Not only will I deliver you, but you're going to come out rich and plundering the very people that suppressed you and held you down. Now, when God says, my name is I am that I am, it's extremely important for us to realize what that means. What do you guys think it means?
Well, I don't have the Hebrew portion in front of me at the moment. So if you do, please say it, because I can go on a whole tangent on
it's translated the same way. It's a phrase showing self-sufficiency, self-existence. God's existence is not contingent on any place or time or people or nation or anything. God is outside of that. If you're wondering who sent you, the one that is beyond what you can comprehend, the one that stays beyond the creation, the one that stays beyond time and everything you've been through.
Wouldn't that just piss them off even more? It's like, oh, this Moses came back. Oh, hey, Moses, the guy who wants to judge and rule over us. Oh, who sent
That's what
you?
Moses' fear is. That's what he keeps
I am
being afraid
who
of.
I am.
But God told him to say these specific words in a specific way where he knows when he gathers up the elders of Israel and he says that I am sent me, that they're going to recognize that was God. And the thing is, Moses is not going to go on his own. He's going to go with the spirit of God following him and the signs and wonders that God's going to give him. Now, it's interesting to note that one of the things that Jesus does later in the book of John is a lot of people use this argument that Jesus never said that I'm God. How can we say Jesus was God? Because he never himself said, oh, I'm the Son of God or I'm God directly. But there's a there's a verse in John chapter 8 where he refers back to this moment. And he literally tells the Pharisees and that he says, before Abraham was, I am. Literally connecting this, they would have known what he's talking about as relation to Moses at the burning bush when God proclaimed his name. Jesus was saying, this is another reason I believe Jesus was there in the midst of the fire, is because he related back to that moment and called his name the I am. That's him calling himself God. So it's one of the most clear proclamations that Jesus claimed he was divine in the entire Bible and shows that God used that name for thousands of years. So it's really, really important and significant.
You know what? I just want to bring something. God, up until this point, never has defined himself. He always, he called the night, he called the darkness night and light, and let there be light. He called the stars, stars. He called the land, the sea, people, wife, woman,
And the sun.
But God, it's like he describes himself as something that's beyond description. I am that I am. That doesn't even make sense. But it's beyond.
I am sent me. What?
But it's it's something that's beyond a description, because honestly, God's proclamation is God. God is basically the spoken power of existence.
Yeah, no,
makes
it's
any sense.
That's what I'm saying. He's outside of our comprehension.
There's nothing, you can't put him in a box.
He doesn't rely on anything to exist. He's self-existent. He is self-sufficient.
You know what's even crazier?
Moses rejects him again after that whole speech.
Yeah,
that Moses still goes. In chapter 4, he literally goes, "What if they don't believe me?" The same thing you asked. It was like, "What if he says my name is I am?" And they just go, "No." Like, people won't believe me was his little response. And Moses and God again, a fourth time, is merciful to Moses in this conversation. Moses should take a moment and look around at what's going on at the moment and just be like,
So the Lord said to them, "What is that in your hand?" And he said, "A rod." No, he said, "A rod." And I'm sorry. And he said, "Cast it on the ground." So he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from it. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Reach out your hand and take it by the tail." And he reached out his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand again. That they may believe that the Lord God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has appeared to you.
People won't believe me, though.
Wow.
But he also put his hand in his bosom and removed it, and his hand became leprous and
like snow. And
he put it back in his chest, bosom, and removed it again, and it was clean. And these are some signs.
They never use that illustration.
They also
hear it a lot. The whole leprous hand one. You hear a lot about the staff
when
being
he went
a
back
snake.
to Egypt. When he went back to Egypt,
we're missing one.
That's what he was doing the whole time.
We're missing the whole casting the water on the stone. We know he turns the Nile to blood, but taking a cup of water and just throwing it on the ground and it just turns to blood as it splashes.
Yeah.
We never talk about that one either. Now let's go. I've talked to 3 people that believe that bosom at one point meant your butt. And that, like, this isn't one person, this isn't 2, this is 3 separate people that for some reason believe that word doesn't mean your chest, like putting your hand in your chest, like your jacket pocket in your, but it meant putting your hand down your pants. So let's clarify that bosom, when he said he put his hand there, it was not putting it down his pants. It was putting it in his like coat jacket inside of like his breast.
They believe that bosom meant butt.
I've met 3 people. I thought it was just one person, and then I've asked a couple more just because I was like, "Is this a thing?" It was a thing. So I just want to clarify that for the record.
The public education system
definitely was a thing.
Failed North Carolina. Jeez. All right.
So this
I
time,
knew bosom wasn't butt.
So this time, after God literally gives Moses the power of miracles and tells him the future, reassures him that he'll be with him, and personally calls him, Moses still hits him back with another excuse in verse 10. I can't speak it. I don't have eloquence. I can't speak good.
I'm slow of speech. But the Lord said to him, "Who has made man's mouth?"
He makes God mad.
"Or who makes the mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore go and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you will say." But he said, "Oh Lord, please send by the hand of whoever else you may send."
Again, Moses, after that, he says, "Go, I've created everything. I am that I am. I'm not qualified, God."
This is the part. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, "Is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well. And look, he is also coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. Now you shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will teach you what you shall do. So he shall be your spokesman to the people, and he himself shall be as a mouth for you, and you shall be to him as God. And you shall take this rod in your hand with which you shall do the signs."
Yeah, it's just, it's so incredible.
And I'm going to end it with this part. So
how did Aaron know?
Went. Because
that's how I ended my notes. It's verse 18.
How did Aaron know that he was where he was?
Well, remember, there was 40 years up until this point. So I'm assuming at one point they reconnected They met up. They knew that Moses was there, because if Aaron was coming, I don't think he was just walking. I think that at one point,
you're right.
The
Prince of Egypt made it look like he ran away into the wilderness and he just disappeared.
I love the movie. I think it's great, but you can't go based off.
It is a movie, and it's an
movie.
animated.
It is a movie, but I love at the beginning it's like
based.
as historically accurate as we can make it.
And we're not even going into the Exodus movie with Christian Bale.
I forgot about that one. I was gonna.
What?
With the kid
I
God,
didn't know this.
Yeah,
God is this little kid that keeps
that
carrying to him.
with all the
I
inaccuracies
forgot
of that.
about that one.
Moses
travesty.
tries to start a revolution.
Yeah,
That kind of goes. I told you, like, I'm not the only person who had this thought. Maybe that's where I got that idea. But
yeah.
it's
Kind of like they just like to indulge. Like, this story by itself is great enough. I don't know why
they never
you have to like
include-
Hollywood it.
They
up.
never include Aaron like being the spokesperson and Moses like working together with them. Now there's that debate. Like, the Bible tells us that he grew in power and speech of Egypt, but he says I'm not eloquent. So some people believe that Moses actually had a speech impediment where he actually either had a stutter or he couldn't speak clearly.
I look at it a different way. I
At
look at
what
it.
age?
personally-
Because why in the world would Pharaoh still keep this?
It could be that after
stuttering
all the
Hebrew boy.
all the banging around in that basket as an infant probably created some
No.
sort of
No.
deformity.
Today's
Honest-
son.
I believe personally that this was like God knew that his people. I mean, Aaron is there amongst the people, right? And if if God himself is saying Aaron's a good speaker, Aaron must have had a reputation amongst everybody. He's probably an eloquent guy, somebody that people tend to listen when he's speaking.
Moses got
And
that
it just
staff,
so
though.
happens to be Moses' brother.
Yeah.
It just so happens that, and people know that Aaron had a brother that disappeared, right? But this guy comes back and he's like kind of like just doing miracles, and Aaron's just
Throwing
talking.
sticks
know-
around, they're turning into
I guess
snakes.
what I'm saying is the people will kind of trust that if Aaron is the one saying this, it has to be God. It's kind of like, I'm not saying but that you could look at it that way too, that like God was using, Aaron in the beginning at least to kind of like have Moses be more official or whatever,
or be comfortable,
like
or kinda use
like
them.
stamped in front of the Hebrews.
It wasn't until the fifth rebuttal that God is finally like, okay, you use your brother. And I guess God knew that was going to happen because God knows everything. So kind of probably ordained that Aaron would be coming anyway. I don't think God was just looking around like, Aaron's coming, use him.
But I mean, God probably could have just used Moses if
And he
Moses had
does
faith
later on.
Yeah,
Moses then does take on the leadership role in Deuteronomy when he's speaking. It doesn't say that he spoke through
Aaron anymore. Yeah,
Moses will kind of have that moment where he kind of fully adopts the role that God has put on him, and this major calling of being the first liberating savior-like figure for the people of God, the people that God set apart to be able to bring about the plan of salvation for all of humanity
through Jesus Christ.
through Jesus Christ. The seed that was promised to crush the head of the serpent, they're in bondage, and now God is going to use Moses to
They're in
liberate them.
slavery.
They're definitely in slavery. Now I'm going to go right into the greater meanings because this has been one of our longer episodes, which I anticipated it being, which is fine. But it's not a long greater meaning. I don't have a long greater meaning for this one.
You're taking a long time to start it, though.
Yeah, I had one, but I've kind of changed. It's kind of changed my mind as I've gone. Like, I feel like we've given so many points up until now. It's hard to give like one idea from everything that happened. Other than that, God's always in control. But I feel like I've said that before.
Okay. Josh, what's your greater meaning behind the episode?
I want to bow out on this.
Was
one.
that it?
Yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. I did a lot of like thinking. I'm kind of fried.
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
I got nothing, guys.
You get where I'm going with the whole slavery thing, right? Or no?
No, I think I know what you're saying, that they weren't as, it wasn't like,
Well, you got to look at it like it's all from the point of view of the Hebrews. And the Hebrews are seeing it all like, oh, these guys are so mean. Whenever you take the point of view of the oppressed, you're always going to hear the worst side of it. But in all of Egyptian history, we don't see that there was an actual, like, we don't see this whole story, really. So, I mean, then again, we don't see Joseph's story in Egyptian history as well. But you would think that if these people were building this large amount, and if they were that afraid of the Hebrew, there would be something written about it. But there wasn't.
I kind of do see I understand what you're saying. All right, Josh, what's your greater meaning?
My greater meaning,
the marriage.
My greater meaning is of the burning bush. Why? What is so confusing?
I'm waiting. I'm listening. But you said the marriage, and then you said burning bush.
I never said marriage. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
He changed his greater meaning.
Start it over.
My greater meaning is about the burning bush.
Okay.
Good.
So sometimes you can find yourself in a daily routine doing what you normally do, I mean, every single day, right? And you get lost in it, and you're running away from problems, kind of like what Moses is doing here. He ran away from his problems, and he's doing kind of like what it seems like busy work. He retired in his own mind, and he threw away all the problems of his past, but he never solved them, and he never resolved them, and he never did anything with them. And then God shows up in the middle of his shepherding task on his daily route. And God shows up and throws a brick in his face, and basically it's like, hey, remember this thing you ran away from? Remember my people? Remember all these problems that you ran away from? Yeah, well, you're going to go back and solve it. You're going to go back and resolve it. So even in our lives, you have things that you're running away from. You have things that you push aside, and you start doing, you get another job, you move to another town to run away from problems that you had previously. And sometimes God shows up in a way that you can't even imagine. Maybe not as a burning bush, maybe as a burning car, maybe as a burning house, or maybe as a failing marriage or something, to kind of make you wake up to the things that you need to, all this baggage that you have that is undealt. Maybe these generational curses that you have in your family line that need to be resolved, So that's like kind of my greater meaning about with the burning bush. Just God sometimes will just show up as a brick in your face, or as a burning bush in your eyes, and now you have leprosy hands. Shazam, leprosy hands. Shazam.
I think you're missing the point of a leprosy hands.
Now you see me? Now you do. In the buttocks. I mean, in the bosom.
In the bosom.
From the bosom.
All right. So my greater meaning, and we'll kind of tie it all together, because Andrew said, you said God is faithful. Josh said,
I said God is always in control.
God is always in control. Josh is like, God will, you have to
God
face.
can show up at any time.
Show up at any time. You have to face things. My greater meaning is going to be that of Moses. It's tough to see, because Moses is essentially, in a lot of ways, the father of Judaism. For at least for the Jews, like, they look at Moses as being their greatest prophet, and it's kind of tough to relate as a person to Moses himself, because the things Moses does is so great, right? And if you read the Bible and you're reading the works, like the things that Moses is you're just like reading this life of like amazing miracles, and just this storybook life of a guy being put down a river at birth and raised in a royal family, in a sense, and commits murder, runs away. God speaks to him, sends him back. He's doing miracles, leads the Israelites. It's like tough to imagine, but the craziest part about all of that is Jesus said much later on that even the works you do will be greater than this. I mean, when he's talking about miracles, right?
Yeah.
The works you will do in my
Greater
name.
works than these.
Greater works than these you will be doing in my name. You look at the story of Moses and you got to understand that Moses is like kind of like the continuation of God holding on to his promise of Jesus Christ later on. You have to understand one thing about this whole greater meaning. And why do we do this? We do it because the whole point of all of this is Jesus and your salvation, right? Moses going to save the Israelites and bring them out of bondage. Jesus Christ came into this world to take you out of the bondage of sin, out of the bondage that you find yourself in, and he's freeing you of it. Is he making your life way easier? Well, were the Israelites' life way easier when they left Egypt? No. What he's doing, though, is he's giving you salvation. He's giving you a chance at eternal life. And that's something that we are going to be going to. We are heading to the land of milk and honey. We are going to the paradise with the streets of gold. We are going where there's no more tears. We are going where we're around our Lord and Father, and our Savior. That's the whole end game of this. The God is the God, the Alpha and the Omega. The Omega is the end game, right? And all of our lives are very finite and it will end. And the whole point of this, learning about the Bible, is for you to ask yourself, where am I ending at? Because the journey of life, it's so fantastic. Life is a beautiful struggle. It's a beautiful journey. And God, as you can see in these stories that we read in the Bible, he has meeting points with everybody. He meets with you. But if you don't end where you need to end, that's the biggest tragedy of all, because Jesus died for you and gave you the chance of salvation. So you have to accept it. And that's my greater meaning.
Beautiful.
Can I throw in one more thing?
Absolutely.
I know that this is a super long episode, and you can stop me if you want. But could it have been when Moses was talking with God that it wasn't much of a like, oh, woe is me, but it could have been a ploy of Moses to be like, I'll go give me more. I want more.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Kind of like God sends him on a mission. Moses
is asking for like more tools and
doesn't really want to go empty-handed. So it's like, well, what can you do for me so I can do this for you?
I could be used in a sermon, I guess, if you really want to.
I think it was just more of a.
I see where you're coming from.
It was more of an example of like how Moses' character was up into that point. Like he's pretty much sold his dreams down the river. Like he kind of just was happy where he was at. Like Nathan said, didn't have any of these grand ambitions anymore, and God called him to it after he had already given up on it. Brought up this old idea.
Yeah, so God calls him to him.
I don't think he was like, let me see what else I can get out of him. You know what I mean? All right, God.
Well, what else you got for
you left money on the table there, Moses.
Well, look at it sometimes like when we have a conversation with God and God wants us to go do something and you're just kind of like, oh man, I'll do it if these three signs come to pass. And then they come to pass. And like, God, I'll do it if I get 100K in the bank, and then once I'm financially set, then I can do all these things that you want me to do. And then next thing you know, you make all this money. God allows you to. He opens the doors. You make all this money, and then you're like, oh, I need to have this type of lifestyle. I need to be surrounded by these people. So you're always putting more and more on because you're too afraid, too nervous to do it. But it's like you're subconsciously bargaining with God to the point where God can get angry enough, because it does say that God got angry with Moses, and he's like, you know what? This is Aaron's gonna speak for you. So sometimes God can get angry enough at us. But look at it from this way. God was willing to deal with all his little, like, oh, woe is me. I'll do it what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this was Moses was what if God didn't really have a plan B for this? Like Moses was he put all his cards on Moses. So he's like, Moses, I need you to go. You don't really have a choice here, buddy. You're going.
Something to put if.
I don't think that men have the power to impede God's plan. I think what happens is one of the greatest tragedies of humanity is God having.
What are you
had a
talking
plan.
about? We just saw it earlier with Judah and Tamar. Look at the Judah's sons.
Did God not bring about what his plan was?
He killed them.
That doesn't mean that God's ultimate plan. I'm saying, like, I don't think if Moses would have continued to be stubborn, that
I think God is a master chess
wouldn't
player.
have saved
God is a master
Israelites.
chess player. We make our moves, and God's already 5 steps, 1,000 steps ahead of us.
What I'm saying is
dude.
we
we make our moves, and God is like, it's not even. He's not playing chess. He's like,
he's out.
He's like
building a house.
He's like,
I know,
yeah,
but
bro.
this is the concept of free will.
No, but what I want to say is that we, in turn, we are the ones that miss out. God's going to do what he's going to do, but the thing about God is he wants to implicate us in his plans. That's what's beautiful about that.
Yes, but he
when we
needed
push him away-
Moses. Why would he deal with Moses in the way that he dealt with Moses if he didn't need Moses?
Because he knew
Who else would he
Moses
have
was
used?
He was the right
You
person.
think
for
Aaron's
the plan.
story was that cool?
Who else has a better story
I
than
knew-
Moses?
I knew you were going to say the Game of Thrones. Guys, we got to end this episode.
All right.
Man. It's
God
it's
always
long.
uses the underdog, and he
That's
uses
true,
the underdog
but-
for a reason.
But God is not
And
going to be like,
part
well,
of it is
Moses.
because of the story.
Moses didn't want to do it. I guess we'll wait another 400 years. I
Thank
don't-
you for listening to the Greater
He
Meaning
would have
podcast.
destroyed Moses to the point where he
Moses
might have
was already
possessed.
destroyed.
He could have gone to the point
No,
of like,
stop.
you know,
All right, we're going to end the episode there. Thank you, boys
Josh,
and girls, for listening.
I'm Nathan. You heard Josh. There's Andrew.
Don't forget to give us that 5-star review if you like what you hear. Share us with your friends. We're trying to hit some goals here. We're getting really close. Share your greater meaning with us
And email us some
at
stuff.
greatermeaningpodcast@gmail.com. Look out for that merch.
were they really
we have
slaves?
welcome mats coming.
And we don't have anything.
The Israelites were absolutely slaves.
And have a wonderful rest of your day.
Join us for Moses Part 2 next time on the Greater Meaning Podcast. Goodbye.
Whoa! Bye.